Logan the Layman Critic here, once again putting on my Layman gamer hat. And since the new Super Mario Brothers movie is coming out, I thought that I would do a recording of me playing what is probably my favorite uh, game in the Mario series, Super Mario Brothers 3. Um, and then while we're talking about, well, essentially while we're playing this game, we'll also talk about Mario in general, entertainment like films, animation, um, the history of the series a little bit, whatever personal opinions I may have, and uh, yeah, and anything else maybe that tickles my fancy. So here we go. Let's go into it. I will be playing this entire game, so this will be. I hope that I remain entertaining to you who are watching and listening. So this game uh, was first released in Japan in 1988, and it was not released in the US until 1990, and then the following year in Europe. And apparently, the reason for this, well, I think it was twofold. One was there was a chip shortage at the time, so I think there was practical considerations, and also the game that we would call Super Mario Brothers 2 did not actually release until 1988, so it wouldn't have made much business sense for them to release 2 and 3 in the same year. So, and I think most of us would probably agree that Super Mario Brothers 2, or Super Mario Brothers USA, as it's known in Japan, uh, is a superior game to uh, the Lost Levels. And so I mentioned before that this is probably my favorite game in this series, and I think well, I should say it's certainly my favorite of the NES games. And I would say probably because, well, it's variety. It's a big game, but the levels are all, the levels aren't too long. Like this level, I'm almost at the end, and it's not long at all. Um, it's I like the variety with the different locales and all the variety in power-ups and the different ways that you can complete the game. So, for example, like if you, man, I was hoping I'd get that. Um, if you're just wanting to speed through the game, I mean, you really could go from World 1 to World 8 just by playing a couple levels in this game, in this world, I should say. And but if you want to take a more scenic route, as we're going to be doing today, um, that's also fun too. I mean, this game has a lot of speedrunners, and I'm not going to pretend to be anywhere near as good at this game as some of those people on here. There was this one, and I didn't know it at the time. I later found out it was a tool assisted speedrun. This was before I even knew that that was a thing. And it was just insane, like watching this person just like bloop, 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 just like bouncing off all these enemies and stuff and getting free lives like one after the other, just rapid succession. And it was really cool. It was really, really impressive. I mean, even for it being a tool assisted speedrun, it's still very entertaining to watch, and I don't think that that's anything new, like for people. I think a lot of people find tool assisted speedruns or just speedruns in general to be very entertaining. And I was going to mention a little secret here. If you are hitting an item that rolls out, it will, whatever direction you're facing when you hit the block, is the direction that it will go towards. So, nice little tip for those of you who may not have been aware. I know a lot of people say that Super Mario World is better, and I think a case could be made for that. Certainly, the size of the game, I think, works to its benefit, but also, um, I think the new features like Yoshi, the little spin jump is really cool. Caped Mario is really cool. Balloon Mario is really cool. But for me, I prefer Super Mario Brothers 3. I like the items, the power ups better in this game. There's more of them. I Even though Caped Mario is really cool and I like Yoshi, I think uh, Raccoon Mario or Tanuki Mario, um, I think they're more fun to fly with because like Caped Mario's faster. You can make more speed and you can stay suspended in the air for longer. But it's really like you're not really flying so much as you are launching and then uh, sort of bouncing up and down through the air for as long as you can. I prefer actually being able to fly. And you have the P-Wing in this game too, so I mean, even though it's a somewhat rare item, I mean, you can't get it in the levels. It's in the inventory. And also, there's other cool stuff like you got the frog suit, which makes swimming so much easier. You have the hammer suit, which is that's arguably the best power up in the game because it takes out pretty much any enemy except for bosses, uh, with the exception of Bowser. It works on ghosts. It works on bullet bills. It works on what's the other one? There's another enemy. Oh, thwomps. Um, yeah, and if you duck, you're immune to fireballs. The disadvantage, of course, is that it doesn't work on the Koopa Links, and you can't slide when you're wearing it for some reason. It's in the game. Like the ability to slide is in the game, and you can glitch it to where you can slide. There's sliding animation and everything, but for whatever reason, I'm guessing maybe um, the choice to remove that feature was related to maybe making sure that that power up wasn't OP, and so they nerfed it a little bit. And another oh, I shouldn't have done that. Silly me. Another interesting thing, like what I love about Invincible Mario, Invincible Luigi, whatever the case may be, is when you get it, you're jumping up into a ball and you're a little bit more, I guess, agile when you're jumping, and I love that feature. It was introduced in this game, and it doesn't really show up that often in other Mario games. It's not in Super Mario World, for example. The I think it was the most recent game for Switch has that little attribute, I guess you could say. And I remember when I played that for the first time actually the other day with my niece, and I noticed that right away. I'm like, oh, cool, just like SMB3. Man, getting some lame power ups today. One thing interesting to note in this game is the Japanese version is just a little bit harder. Um, and by that I mean, so as you can see right now, I'm Fire Mario. Now in the US version, if I get hit, I downgrade to Super Mario. In the Japanese version, if I was to get hit right now, I would go straight to Little Mario. And it does this with every item, no matter what. And this actually goes back to the gameplay mechanic from the first game because that's how it worked in the first game. And I think the reason that they changed it for this, well, one maybe because they didn't want the game to be too challenging, but I also think that it's kind of a holdover from Super Mario Brothers 2 because with Super Mario Brothers 2, you could um, increase you had like a life meter kind of, so you could take up to 3 hits, and I think that was them kind of keeping some gameplay continuity between the entries. And of course, in Japan, they didn't get, well, as I said, what we call Super Mario Brothers 2. They didn't get that game until later. The version that they had was different. The gameplay was more or less the same, but the characters, it wasn't a Mario game until much later. Um, Underrated game, Super Mario Brothers 2, in my opinion. Even if you play it as Doki Doki Panic, which is an inferior game for a variety of different reasons, notably that you have to beat the game with every character and you don't have a run function. Um, it's still. I lost my train of thought. I would say it's still fun. It's still fun to play Doki Doki Panic, but it's inferior to Super Mario Brothers 2. I'm curious to know, um, with the Mario Brothers movie coming out soon, how much of this game will carry over into the movie. Now, obviously, I've seen. I'm trying to think. Are there any the Koopalings? I have not seen the Koopalings in any of the previews, and I don't think any of the power ups. Raccoon Mario's not in this in the movie, is he? I saw the cat. I've seen the fire flower. I think I've seen the magic mushroom. But I'm excited for the movie. I really am. Um, I think that it. It's kind of like with the Sonic movie when that came out. My thought was like, this seems about 20, 30 years too late. Why are they making it now? And once the Sonic movie came out, and I really, really liked it, especially the second one, I felt maybe a little bit more optimistic about this game. Um, I still have some mm, minor reservations about the film. Like there was a preview the other TV spot, excuse me. There was a TV spot on the other day, and basically the entire commercial was just Princess Peach. Mario was in it like maybe like 2 shots the entire advertisement. And my thought was, how do I feel about this? Sometimes you might have an ad that focuses on one particular character, and that's kind of you have different ads focusing on different characters, and maybe that's what it is. Um, but my initial reaction to that was like, I don't like this. This is Super Mario Brothers, like, and I know I'm not the only person that has sort of expressed some level of discontent, if you want to call it that. And wow, I'm really sucking at this today. Um, I had watched a video, and I have no idea if this is legit, so take this with a very big grain of salt. That apparently the studio making the movie wanted to make Peach's role much bigger, and Nintendo was like, no, Mario's the hero of this story. You can't have her, you know, stealing his thunder. And I totally agree with that. That would be ridiculous. And I have no problem with Princess Peach having a more active role in the story as far as like fighting the Koopas and stuff like that, because we've had that going back to Super Mario Brothers 2. I mean, she wasn't fighting Koopa in that, but um, she was still, you could play her, and she was fun. She had her own unique little mechanics, so like she could float for a little for a short distance, and um, that's actually one of the cool things about Super Mario Brothers 2 is the fact that you can um, play as not just the brothers, but you can play as Toad, as seen on the right, and as the princess, and they all had their own unique um, abilities. So, for example, Toad, his jump height would not change when he carried items. Mario was mm, Mario didn't really have anything distinctive, although he was his height. His jump height might change a little bit when he carried an item. I can't remember, but not much. Um, and his jump height was about average in general. Um, Luigi could jump really high but very slow, and as I mentioned before, the princess could float. So, and even going back to the original game, like if you, I'm probably in a small minority here. If you read the manual for the first game, the princess is an integral part of the story. Like her little character entry says that, and I think even in the story, it says that she's the one that can undo all the magic that Bowser has used to transform the residents of the Mushroom Kingdom into horsehair plants, blocks, things like that. So obviously she's important. Now, does that mean she's knocking skulls or whatever? No, no. And I think that, again, I'm not opposed to having her have a more active role. At the same time, she should not be dominating the story. And gosh, Hollywood really, really, they need to learn this because um, female protagonists, we like them, but they need to be done right. Uh, I don't know how else to put it, and like they can't be just men. Like they have women have their own unique strengths, of course. This is self-evident. But for whatever reason, in movies now, we have like a 90-pound girl trying to, like, we have her taking down a guy who's probably 200 pounds of muscle, and we're like, oh yeah, that's totally realistic. It happens all the time. Um, and with Mario, obviously, this is a different situation because we're talking about a world of magic and things like that. But I think even still, like, we have a certain amount of maybe exasperation with Hollywood right now with that. I think the heavy emphasis on female protagonists has it's been done wrong so many times that I think a lot of us are kind of burnt out on it. So, case in point, I don't want to dive too heavily into this. We can get back to Mario in a second, but um, you look at Star Wars. So, when I saw The Force Awakens, was not a fan of Rey. Um, didn't like the character at all. Found her to be what's the word? Insufferable. I preferred Poe. I preferred Finn, and those characters weren't great either. But in comparison to Rey, I would have rather have had the story focused on those guys. Now, Rogue One, different story. I liked Jin. I thought she was an interesting character. I liked her backstory, and I also felt like the way she was depicted her strength was not at the expense of the other characters. Like, she had her own unique function within the story, and her relationship with her father was an important part of getting the story moving along. Like, it gave her a certain motivation and allowed her to bounce off the other characters in a compelling way. We need more characters like Jin, less like Rey, I guess is what I'm saying. And Rogue One had a lot of cool side characters too. I mean, uh, Andor, Chirrut. Um, what's the droid's name? I can't remember. He was cool too. Anyway, so where's that coin? Was it here? No. Ow, man, I got the memory of a goldfish right now. Let's talk about Mario Media for a second here. So we had the movie in the 90s, the first attempt at making a live-action feature. It was like Nintendo's first foray into film, although thinking about it now, I don't think that's technically true. We'll get to that in a moment. But I think, and one of the key lessons learned here from that film was that Nintendo wanted way more creative control this time around. They wanted to have more of a say. And that movie in the 90s, they didn't really have much input over the production, which is why it looks like a weird combination of like Blade Runner and I don't know what, Fifth Element maybe, without actually having the charm of either of those films or the success. I mean, well, I guess Blade Runner wasn't successful until later, but yeah, I mean, and I remember at the time, like, I was excited for the Mario Brothers movie. I remember thinking, "Oh, this is cool," and I do remember like seeing the previews for like Dennis Hopper. It was like plumbers, like, and of course not knowing who his character was. And I didn't see this. I never saw it in the theater. My parents didn't take me to see it or anything like that. Um, I don't know if they had any inclination to, but I eventually saw it probably like a year later on TV. And when I found out that Dennis Hopper was Bowser, or Koopa as he's called in the movie, I remember thinking, what is this? Why isn't he like a dragon turtle thing? And I liked the movie. I know, and I know a lot of kids. Like one of my best friends, he loved. I think he still likes the movie. Like, now that I think about it, but it's not anything like the games. Like there's a lot of nods, I guess you could say, to the games. Like there'll be sound effects, um, names. So, for example, Big Bertha, the very the corpulent lady, as they put it. Um, yeah, Big Bertha, but Big Bertha isn't a big black woman in the games. It's just a fish, which we will come across in this eventually, probably in this level coming up. Um, yeah, the Boom Boom Bar. Boom Booms are another character from uh, this game. Um, the flamethrowers, they shoot fireballs, obviously meant to be somewhat of a reference to the fire flower. But I don't understand why bother to make a movie of a game when you're not even going to properly represent the world. Like I understand. Like a lot of people say, like, well, how are you gonna make a movie of uh, a couple plumbers, going from the left side of the screen to the right, jumping on turtle shells, killer mushrooms, things like that. And it's always like a very reductive argument. It's like, how are we gonna do it? Well, we did it for several seasons on the cartoon. It seemed to work out fine. And not only that, we had literally like three different iterations of the Super Mario cartoon. We had the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which a lot of those episodes were kind of spoofs on popular movies and things like that, but it was still set in the world, had those characters, it used those items. And then The Adventures of Super Mario Brothers 3, which is, in my opinion, the best of the three cartoons. And then you had Super Mario World. They did it. So it does beg the question to me, why did they just not do an animated film? And there might be, there might be a couple of reasons for that. One, maybe they wanted to differentiate from the TV show, and they were afraid of somehow affecting that on a business end. There's also the possibility that maybe they couldn't do a cartoon film for that same reason, because there was already an animated series in syndication. Yeah, I really don't know. And the thing too is they could have brought over an animated movie that was released in Japan. It was a Mario movie. I think it was like called like Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach or something like that. And it came out. When did that come out? I think maybe like a year or two after the first Super Mario Brothers game. I could be wrong there. You're welcome to correct me. But and again, faithful adaptation of the games of the game, I should say, because there weren't many at that time. Come on. All right. Wow, that was embarrassing. And with that particular film, um, like the storyline. Oh, I should preface by saying this movie is very rare. Like it's I did not find out about it until mm, let me think. Probably the early 2000s. And I had actually I'd never seen it. I remember it was like a Super Mario Brothers fan site. There was fan mail and somebody wrote in about it, and they actually had an image of, I think it was the poster art. And we knew next to nothing about it. So there was a lot of, I guess you could say, mystery as to what this movie was, even the quality of it, because my understanding was it had a theatrical release and it had a home video release, one home video release, and it's never been on home media since then. Now, if you look around, you can find it on YouTube and watch it, and I have once or twice. And like I said, it's decent. It's not great, um, but like I feel like what they could have done was just dub that in English and sell it in the U.S. and it would have saved them a ton of money for starters on actually producing their own Mario film. And Kids would have eaten it up. I have no doubt that the movie probably would have made a ton of money because animation typically animated films, especially at that point in time, they almost always made money because usually with family films, and I don't know if this is true now, but back when theatrical releases were sort of ubiquitous and we didn't have streaming and things like that, family films always did better than you know PG-13 R-rated films because you had fewer options available to you. Strangely enough, um, so and I think in that case you have not only you have a family film, but you have a family film with a very popular property. So, um, yeah, I don't know, and maybe again, maybe that was a business decision. Maybe they couldn't, for whatever reason, they couldn't get the rights to use that film for distributing and for dubbing and distributing to the U.S. And we'll probably never know because I don't know anybody who's ever actually been interviewed involved in the production of that film. But it is fun. I do like it. I think there are certain things from that film that kind of carried over into later iterations, whether we're talking about the games or even uh, media. So, for example, I think that's where Luigi was sort of introduced as being more timid. Another thing with like Bowser wanting to make Princess Peach his wife, I think that came from that feature. And there's probably some other things. One interesting uh, oddity, I guess if you want to call it that. For some reason, in that movie, Luigi's color scheme, it's like I don't remember. I think it's like blue and yellow. It's not. I don't think it's. I don't think he wears green and blue or green and white like in the first Super Mario Brothers game. Yeah, I don't know what. I don't know why that's the case. I don't know if it was. I don't know what the decision was behind that. But in any case, it's just kind of peculiar. And there's one other thing that always stuck out in my mind because there's a little musical montage at one point where they're traveling and they shoot fireballs and they take out Buzzy Beetles with the fireballs, which if you have any familiarity with these games, that does not work. That's actually uh, probably when you're playing through the game for the first time, that's probably one of the distinguishing features of those enemies is the fact that the only way you can stop them is by invincibility or knocking them against another shell. One thing I do remember not liking about the that particular film was how they how they arrive in the Mushroom Kingdom. Um, it's like Mario is playing a video game and the Mushroom Kingdom exists in that world and they get pulled into the game. And it's just I whether it's the Worlds of Power novels where the kid would get sucked into the game and join an adventure with Simon Belmont or Kuros or whatever, or Captain N the Game Master. I always hated the idea of treating a game world as a literal game world that people would get pulled into. It always just seemed kind of lame and just took away from the reality, if you want to call it that. That's why I think a lot of the time I don't care for the breaking of the fourth wall in entertainment of any kind. I think the only time you can really get away with that is like something like Deadpool. Otherwise, it just feels like you're cheating the audience in a sense, because when you're watching a movie, reading a book, whatever it might be, being pulled into a fictional story, you're essentially being invited to sort of invest in the characters and treat it as if it's something that's real. And then when that said story decides to pull a fast one and say, "Hey, this isn't actually real," it feels sort of like a betrayal to the person partaking in the entertainment, because it's telling you, it's like, "Oh, you invested in this? Oh, you sucker!" And I hate that. Uh, that's one thing. I know Hideo Kojima loves to do that in his games, particularly like Metal Gear Solid and stuff like that. And I know it's kind of cute, but I always find it kind of off-putting, and I don't like it. As an inside joke, swallowed by Big Bertha. There you go. As an inside joke, like outside, an inside joke outside of the story of the game, I think it's fine. You can do that. Um, but I think within the game, no, that's a no-no. I'll give you a good example of how you should do it. So, GoldenEye. You play GoldenEye, and then like within the game, you're playing it as a story, and then once once the game is over, once you have your ending, then the credits roll, and it treats it like it's a movie, but not before that. And that's how I think it should be done. All right, gotta get a drink of water 1 second. Okay. But going back to the Super Mario Brothers movie from, oh, darn it, grabbed the wrong one by mistake. Going back to the Super Mario Brothers movie from the 90s. Um, so apparently it was directed by a husband and wife team, and they, I don't know if they developed or created or perhaps both, Max Headroom, which was a very popular sort of show from the 80s. I'm not really sure what the appeal of it was, but um, it big pop culture icon, I guess you could say. So, and so they took over directing, and the film itself went through several different scripts, several different writers, and each one was kind of combining different aspects of the previous script and integrating it into the latest one. And then somehow or other they got to the point where it was okay, so now it's just Blade Runner with fungus. I don't know. I don't know exactly why they decided that that was the best course of action. As far as like, what was the decision to make it that way? What do why why differentiate it so much from the games? Like I almost think that like it's not. It's like on one hand, I feel like there's sort of a dismissive attitude towards the games, like, oh, this is kid stuff. Like, we're gonna make a real Mario movie, and but then on the other hand, they have these references, like the names and the sounds and stuff like that. So I really don't know what they were thinking. I think maybe it just boiled down to having too many cooks in the kitchen. And with a lot of films that kind of have that problem, think about oh, the Alien 3 is the one that jumps to mind. Too many cooks in the kitchen. Not a script that was actually locked in. Um, Clashing of artistic visions. Probably not hiring the best director to handle the film. Sorry if you're a fan of David Fincher. I don't think Alien 3 is a great movie. It's entertaining enough, but um, and there's other movies too. Like I think uh, Superman Returns kind of has a similar problem where it's a that production. Uh, you look at the credits for that. There's like all the writers attached to that movie. It's like a script by committee. Yeah, they usually that. How often does that ever actually work? Come on, there we go. It's kind of funny. I have noticed using the fireballs on the bosses. You ordinarily, like if you play the first Mario game, fireballs like that. It's easier actually to defeat Bowser with the fireballs than it is to try and dodge him and get to the other side. And here it's the total opposite. Like the fireballs are actually more make it more difficult than just jumping on the shell. I love this king because he kind of looks like he looks like a Black Mario or he looks like Little Richard depending on depending on how you view it. But Little Richard. Oh, and here is my favorite world, World 4, Giant Land. And there are, well, depending on the level, there are doors you can go through where it shrinks them back to size, but we're not going to do that because what's the fun in that? I love the big blocks, the big clouds, the big turtles, the big Goombas. I want to know whose idea this was because whoever it was, I hope they got a raise because I love this world. It would have been cool if they had made a giant Koopaling. Um, Nintendo, if you're watching this or if you're listening to it, there you go. Use that idea in a future game. I'm going to do my darndest to make sure that this that this playthrough is as entertaining as possible. Um, I suspect that this will take me more than an hour to beat because this game is quite massive, and I do want to see it through to the end. So if there are little lulls while I'm playing, I apologize in advance. We're halfway through the game at this point, so more or less. I mean, we just started World 4, so. Mm, no, where are you? No. Okay. I could make this go by a little faster if I skipped the spades. I suppose I don't necessarily need those. So, okay, the inventory. I mentioned earlier. I know I'm jumping around a lot here. The inventory for Super Mario Bros. 3. That's something that this game has over Super Mario World. I wish Super Mario World had an inventory. But I guess part of the reason that they don't have one is because they don't have as much uh, power ups, as many power ups, excuse me. But the one nice thing that Super Mario World has is you have the little reserve power up. So if you get hit in the middle of the level, it'll go doo 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 doo, and it'll fall down, and you just pick it up if you lost your cape or whatever. And I would love, I don't know how you would do this, um, but the Mario hacking community is fairly substantial, at least from what I can tell. I would love to see a hack of Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World that utilizes the game mechanics, some of the game mechanics of the other. So, for example, having the reserve item in Super Mario Bros. 3, being able to replay levels like Super Mario World, that kind of thing, or having Super Mario World where you can um, uh, you have an inventory and you have more items, something like that. I think that would be really cool. I know that there's one of the Super Mario Advance games actually, it might be for 3, where you can actually, it's hidden in the game. Um, you can get a cape, or maybe it's in World where you can get Raccoon Mario. I think it's 3 though. Um, I think that, yeah, I think something bigger, something more substantial than just those little Easter eggs or whatever would be a lot of fun. Let's see, do we have one? No, no more. That's a shame. Oh, another cool thing might be like making a mod of Super Mario Brothers 2 that has the level design from one of the other games, but obviously the same gameplay mechanics as 2. So, for example, like let's say you play Super Mario Brothers 1, and but you can, instead of jumping on enemies, you can pick them up, and you can extend your life meter, things like that. I think that'd be cool. That might be a little bit more of an undertaking. I'm not sure, just because um, Super Mario Brothers 2 doesn't have the same assets. So the enemies are totally different. I don't know how you'd do that, but get to work on it, hackers. Let's see. Do we have any? Eh. See, the trick here is because if you're playing through the whole game, you're gonna want to make sure you use your items, because whatever the last item is on your inventory, if you pick up another item, it's gonna replace that. And if it's an item that you really like, you're gonna be very upset if it gets replaced by something like a mushroom. So, like, I've had that happen to me multiple times. I'd have a Hammer Mario and it gets replaced with like a Starman. It's like, ah, you don't do this to me. Ah, come on. Almost there. Hmm. What to use? What to use? We'll try a mushroom. Sledge Brothers. P-Wing. The P-Wing is your friend. I remember as a young boy playing this game, not being very good at it. I don't even think I knew how to fly, actually. Um, but whenever I was able to get those, um, it was so that was, yeah. As I said, the P-Wing is your friend. See that little doorway that makes things small again, but as I mentioned, we're not going to do that because that's not fun. So a little trick I forgot to mention. I don't know that anybody's I've ever actually read or heard anybody say this, but if you run and fill up your P meter, as you can see below, right before you hit that box, you almost always get a star. So that's good for getting 3 stars. If that's assuming you have a good running start, because certain levels the pipe might be closer to the cutoff edge, and makes it hard to do that. Here we go. Get another drink of water. I don't think I've gotten a Tanuki suit yet. I thought this was the world that shows up in. Maybe I'm wrong. I've played this game enough times. I should know. I played through this, I don't know, 3 or 4 times leading up to this recording, just to get myself reacclimated to the gameplay again. Hopefully, you are being entertained. Come on. There we go. You remember the Super Mario Brothers toys? I never owned any. I saw an advertisement, the old advertisement for those action figures, and I had totally forgotten that they even had them. I just happened to be scrolling through Facebook, and there's a there's a nostalgia page. It's called Dinosaur Dracula. There's all sorts of stuff from, like, I think it's, I don't know if there's anything from the 80s. There might be. Most of the stuff I seem to remember is from the 90s. And yeah, there was an advertisement for that, and they actually have like the Goomba soldiers and stuff. I they and like they look like they're the real deal, not like some cheap knockoff or whatever. Yeah, that it's and the toy maker wasn't even like, it was some company I'd never even heard of. Um, so it was weird to me. Like, you would have thought that Nintendo or the studio would have been able to broker a good deal with um, a toy manufacturer, like, I don't know, like Kenner or Mattel or Hasbro or any of those, major companies. I suppose Kenner was probably owned by Hasbro at that point, but um, yeah, I mean, they look kind of cool, but again, it's like, well, this isn't really. This is a Bob Hoskins action figure. This isn't. This isn't even really Mario. And what's funny too is that, like, of course, the action figures of Mario and Luigi are of them wearing the red and the green, which they don't wear until maybe 3/4 of the movie. And my understanding was that somebody had to pressure them to put that in the movie, because originally I think the directors did not want it in there at all, and maybe it was Nintendo was like they have to wear the iconic outfit, and thank God that they did because it would have even felt less like Mario than it already did. I like this king too. He's shirtless. You notice very he's got little teeny tiny dots, so you can see he's shirtless. I love this letter because it tells you where a whistle is, but it's like not even in this world. It's like world two, which I mean, I granted I got the whistle just again because I wanted to be show you every level, but we won't be using it. Oh darn you! I was gonna try and get to try. Wow, I'm really not doing well. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. How many do I have? Okay, we're gonna use a P-wing here. I mentioned earlier, as a kid, I did not know how to fly, um, on account of the fact that I didn't know how to run. So there's a trick here, and it's usually actually you can usually only get it through. You have to be really good at maneuvering. Um, I'm let's see. Okay, so darn it, I'm stuck here. Okay, I don't actually want to. I don't want to get that because it's gonna cut the level short. And I don't want that item. No, darn you. Okay, it's a music box, but that's a little secret there, and it ends the level. But I don't want to do that. I want to show you the rest of the level. And because I want these. And this is also where the P-wing is quite useful. Oh, well, all good things must come to an end. Japanese version has an extra little section here. You have to go through a pipe to get through here, and they changed it for the U.S. release because there's there's a glitch that it creates. So they decided to fix that bug in their subsequent releases for localization. So the rumor on the street is that if this new Mario film is a success, which it probably will be, they intend on creating a NCU, if you want to call it that, Nintendo Cinematic Universe. Um, there's rumors about a Zelda film being in pre-production, which that would be so wonderful. I would love to have a Zelda film. Um, but and then maybe Metroid, possibly. I'm not sure. Um, I mean, we kind of trying to think. Well, I mean, Detective Pikachu did pretty well. That from what I heard. I never saw it for myself because I'm not. I don't really care for Pokemon. But so you already have a little bit of a foundation there. So you have that successful film. You have Mario, which undoubtedly will be a successful movie. And then whatever comes next, which if it is a Zelda film, um, I'm kind of thinking maybe they should go the animated route with that too. Like as much as I probably would like to have a live action film, I don't know. I don't know. I think maybe animation is the way to go. I would love to have like an anime of Zelda. That would be the bee's knees. But I don't foresee that happening. I'm really kind of surprised that there hasn't been more Nintendo anime, to be perfectly honest. Um, given that it's a Japanese company. I mean, Pokemon is. I mean, that's actually for those of us in the U.S. That's how we got introduced to Pokemon is through the show. The show came out before the games, and then I don't know if the cards came first. I don't know if the cards came before the Game Boy games or not. I do remember them being incredibly popular. Like people are always wanting to trade cards at school, and they had like a huge um, like notebook for collecting them. I got a friend I think who still owns them. What was funny to me because it was a card game, but I didn't know anybody as a kid who actually played the game. They just collected the cards. And funny enough, my friend that I mentioned that still has the cards, he plays it now. Um, I'm not sure how exactly the game works. It might be kind of similar to Magic: The Gathering, but yeah, that was just kind of a peculiar thing. I remember even as a kid, like I think I remember asking, "It's like, do you guys even play the game, or do you just have the cards?" I'm not even sure why you collected the cards. I mean, I knew that they were worth money, but how often did people actually sell them? I don't know. But yeah, as I mentioned before, I was not into Pokemon. I remember liking the show, and then I think like a lot of fads, like Dragon Ball Z, at that age, which I would have been like fifth or sixth grade, it was popular, but it was like constant bombardment of it. Like whether it was just like people would always talk about it, and I just got so burnt out on it. I was like, okay, yeah, I don't like this anymore. I'm gonna go stick with Star Wars, which, funny enough, I mean, there's actually I don't know that that was anywhere near as bad as this in terms of saturation as Pokemon was or Dragon Ball. But fortunately for me, I did go back to Dragon Ball eventually in my 20s. I re- rediscovered my love for it, and I'm a big fan of it. Pokemon, not so much. But I've heard, like I said, I've heard Detective Pikachu is pretty good, and I maybe one of these days I'll watch that. One of the criticisms I heard of for the new movie, well, I guess, and I think a lot of people have talked about this, was the fact that Chris Pratt didn't sound like uh, is that Charles Martinet or Martinet? I'm not sure how his last name's pronounced, but the guy who the official voice for Mario is that Chris Pratt doesn't sound a thing like him. And my thought was, well, that's probably a good thing because if you had that kind of voice for, I'm gonna take a guess and say the movie's 90 minutes, that would wear thin very, very quickly. It's probably for the best that uh, Chris Pratt didn't play it in pasta face. That's I did not make. I wish I could say I made up that term, but come on, no. Okay, I wish I could say I made up that term that originated from Tony from Hack the Movies because he's Italian, and I can't remember what the context was that he used it in, but uh, yeah, the idea being that you pretend to be Italian, so you call it pasta face. So if you're offended by it, take it up to Antonio Peluso because he's the one that came up with it. He's Italian. These little wiggly steps, platforms, whatever you want to call them. Somebody, I don't know who it was. I don't know, it was a friend, said that they look like toilet seats. And now that after they said that, I can't unsee it. Yeah, they look like toilet seats. They do. Now I have Tanuki Mario. Now, as a kid, have no idea what Tanuki was. And I'm kind of surprised that Nintendo didn't change it because it's so distinctly Japanese. And usually, when Nintendo's trying to localize their their own properties, they try to make stuff that's not too foreign. Whether it's like lingo or items or anything like that. Um, but in this particular case, they kept Tanuki, and Tanuki is sort of a folklore creature. It's like kind of like a raccoon, and it could, I think it could turn to stone because that's the power you have. And it had one other unique characteristic which I will not disclose on here because um, it might not be appropriate for children. Um, if you're that curious, you just look up Tanuki. It's Tanuki. Okay, as much as I want to keep this, I'm trying to go in order, and I think I'm going to need this, so I'm going to use the P-Wing. I hate this level. For some reason, I'm always having trouble on this. So, we're just going to float through here. You don't see these enemies too often, these little floating shells. You can actually ride on them, but it's like they sink when you step on them, and then when you jump off, they start flying upward. And then these guys coming up. I hate these guys. Get out of here. If you wait long enough, they explode. The little turtle floating on the shell. Not floating in the shell, floating in the cloud, dropping the spiny shells. I've never heard a consistent pronunciation of that name. And maybe the movie will finally give us a definitive answer to that. So I've heard Lakitu, 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 Lakatu. Yeah, I've heard. I mean, it's presumably it's Japanese. I don't know if there's some if it has some meaning behind it. If it's like a play on a name, sort of like Kuribo. That's the Japanese name for Goomba. Uh, Kuri means chestnut because Kuribo they resemble a chestnut. That's actually kind of a common word to name play because like with going back to Dragon Ball for a minute, the character Kuririn, or known as Krillin here in the U.S., his name is as a play on Kuririn, you know, because his head looks like a chestnut. Another music box. I don't need you, music box. I fight the turtles. I don't run. This is another level I don't like. Do 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 do. Eh, almost there. Also, Hammer Mario can take out the dry bones. It's another enemy that it works well on. No other weapon does that. And then Tanuki has some weird functions on it too. With if you turn to a statue as you're dropping down, you can take out ghosts. You can take out the little flame blasts from those cannons and like the flying ships. Thwomps. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think dry bones. The spinning discs, which I've never thought of them as being an enemy. I just always consider them like a trap, like spikes. But yeah, it works on them too. If I get the chance, I'll show it off to you. Just neat little trick. Do I have it? Yes, I do. I have one of them. Maybe I'll use it here, or not here, but the flying ship. Oh, I just remembered something that I was gonna mention earlier, and I got sidetracked because I'm uh, playing and talking stream of consciousness. Um, so there is this fan theory, which I guess was confirmed by Shigeru Miyamoto, which is that Super Mario Bros. 3 is a play. And the reasons for that are, well, I'll show you a couple. Okay, so for starters, this black part here is supposed to be backstage. And if you look at certain platforms, it looks like they have screws, like they're being bolted into the walls. And then, what's another example? What's the other one? Well, okay, the most obvious one is the curtain opening at the beginning. And then, what is the other one? I know that there's another one. Well, you can hide behind objects. You can go like it's like going backstage. Um, Personally, kind of going back to what I said about like breaking the fourth wall and feeling like you're like cheated. I kind of feel like that. And there's nothing, even though Miyamoto confirmed it to be true. I think subsequent re-releases have actually uh, changed the look of the game, so it doesn't actually reflect that. So maybe at one time that was the original authorial intent, but as it stands now, I don't think that's the case. Come on. No! Darn it. I'm trying to remember what the other thing was that. Roy Koopa. No, come on, come on, come on! Yeah, see his stomp. If you're on the ground when he stomps, it immobilizes you, and for a couple of seconds, and makes it hard to. Well, it makes it impossible to move. You can't jump. You can't walk or anything. It's a big pain. I don't even think you can use fireballs. I'm not sure what Toad is supposed to be doing in his pose. I don't know if he's like, maybe he's bowing, like a Japanese bow. I don't know. I like this little detail too of the princess. You can see her eyes blinking and her mouth is moving. Let's see what do we have here. We'll use a mushroom. I suppose I wouldn't be against the idea of having Mario 3 as a play if it somehow figured into the plot. Like maybe Bowser decides to turn like he casts a spell and it like makes the Mushroom Kingdoms look like a stage because he wants to put on this grand performance to honor his brilliance or something like that. Um, but as it just being like a on its own, just a play telling a story, and it's like no, I don't like that. And as I mentioned before, none of the other games reference it as being a play. Like I think the manual for Super Mario World does not. It talks about being set after the events of Super Mario Brothers 3. So yeah, not that there's a whole lot of continuity in these games anyway. It's never been a big part of the Mario lore, I guess you could say. It's all very loosely connected, and I think fans are happy with that. That's the way we want it. Gives the character a little bit more versatility. Like the idea of having a canon for Mario is a bit absurd. I think something like Zelda, yes, definitely, because it's more story based. Mario doesn't really. I will say this. I would like to have a Mario game that maybe isn't as cutesy. Apparently, I read an article like Miyamoto. He was kind of against some of the more cutesy aspects that have been implemented in the Mario games. Um, for example, like he didn't like the idea of Mario doing the peace sign or V sign, whatever you want to call it, with his hands. Like he didn't like that, but it ended up working its way into the game anyway. I mean, there's no escaping it. I mean, Mario's always been inherently kind of cutesy, but I would like to see something maybe that's a little darker. I use that term very loosely because I think having I think okay, so maybe a bit, but good way to compare it would be having a Mario game with its tone being like in the vein of something like Zelda. So Zelda doesn't take itself completely seriously, but it has plenty of light stuff. But something maybe in that vein, not to the level of say Metroid. A Mario adventure game would be kind of cool, like styled like Zelda. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we've had a another property using gameplay elements like Zelda. Star Tropics is basically a Zelda game, although we haven't had a Star Tropics game probably since I'm not sure when Zelda's Revenge came out. I don't know if that was the 80s or 90s, but and then of course in the early 2000s you had um, Star Fox Adventures. They took them out of the ship and they made it an adventure game, and making a lot of Star Fox fans upset because they wanted a Star Fox game. So okay, here's the spinning discs. I'm gonna try and do this. See if it works. Bloop. There we go. Bloop. One more. Bloop. And I think those those guys too. I can do it. I can't remember what they're called. I want to say it's like hothead, something like that. But Why can't I remember what that other thing was that referenced um, it being a play? I think the map too. I mean, that's kind of proof that it's not a. Oh, I don't know. I mean, what's it? It's kind of silly trying to rationalize this, but I do wonder with the new movie how the Mario Brothers arrived in the kingdom. Um, with basically every, I think, well, maybe not every, we'll say like every film, animation, interpretation, he's always gotten like sucked down a drain, or it's something like or in the one animated film, he's pulled into the TV. Um, this parallel dimension, the portal or whatever in the '90s movie. So there's always some. He never actually starts off as a resident of the kingdom. Um, though, of course, we see in the games um, that he is from there. That he is from the Mushroom Kingdom. He's not from Brooklyn, or the outside world. And if you look at something like Super Mario Odyssey, he's not even the same height. He's considerably shorter than an average human being. His proportions are not the same. But yeah, I'm curious to see how they will uh, bring that character into the Mushroom Kingdom, because as we can tell from the previews, he is not he's not familiar with their world. Come on, where's the little Koopa Troopa? There we go. See, 5-year-old Logan would not have been able to do this level because he couldn't fly, because he didn't know how to run. Something that's kind of surprised me that they haven't done is um, make a Super Mario RPG 2. I mean, I guess the closest we've gotten to that is Paper Mario, because that I don't know if it's a straight RPG because I've never actually played it, never had any inclination. But um, yeah, I don't know if it's because Square doesn't really Square was the one that developed that game, if I'm not mistaken, and they don't really do anything for. They don't really work with Nintendo anymore. And they probably haven't done a good Nintendo worked in a Nintendo game since like uh well, there was the one Final Fantasy game that they had on GameCube, and there was like Crystal Chronicles, but they almost always just do stuff with Sony now. So I don't know. Maybe that's the holdup. Is they just they want to do a game. They want to have a professional developer, like seasoned pros, working on it. And uh, Super Mario RPG, hugely popular game. I mean, I'm not a big RPG gamer, but I enjoy it well enough. And I think its graphics at the time were really impressive too. Like it's sort of, I don't know if it's not really, is it 3? It's not really 3D, but it's like it has the illusion of 3D, I guess. I mean, it's more 3D than say Doom. Doom isn't. Doom is like think they say it's like 2.5D. But, mm, use that item up because I'm not using it. Yes! Hammer Mario. That's my guy. We're going to save that one. You'll see. Hmm. I think for me, regarding the casting for Super Mario, the Super Mario Brothers movie, um, my big concern wasn't actually Chris Pratt. My bigger concern was Jack Black as Bowser and what's his name? Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. Um, Actually, the casting was really was really strange. I think all around it was very unconventional, and yet somehow it seems to have worked because listening to the characters in the previews, they all sound right. It's like Keegan Michael Key that plays Toad. Like somehow, like I would not have anticipated his voice suiting Toad, but here we are. It does make me wonder too, like um, when this movie ends up becoming a success, 'cause as I said, it almost definitely will. What effect is that going to have on the greater Mario lore or whatever you want to call it? Like what is that going to do to the games? Like is that going to have some sort of impact? Because as I mentioned before, there are things from outside media that have sort of formed how the games depict certain characters. So, for example, Luigi being more cowardly. Even like with the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, nobody ever really points this out. Is like Toad's voice in that cartoon. It's very like kind of scratchy and like, uh, and then you play something like New Super Mario Brothers for Wii, and you got the Toads and like help me. Like I can't do it justice, but it sounds just like from that cartoon. So it'll be interesting to see. Because you think about something like, um, well, like how it's been, like how Sonic the Hedgehog has been influenced by the outside media. So, for example, um, the Saturday morning cartoon had the SWAT bots, which ended up making some appearance in the one of the games. I'm not sure which game, but and then his love for chili dogs, which was never in the games, ended up uh, appearing in one of the games. I'm not sure which one, but Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Mario Brothers. Those games were my jam back in the day. It was all about that. Like when I was little, I wanted to be a plumber when I grew when I grew up. Not realizing that, of course, plumbers do not save princesses or fight giant dragon-like turtles. They clean pipes. Probably have to handle poop in their hands at some point. Deal with some very stinky water. That's probably dangerous for your health. Not having adventures. At least I didn't want to be a hedgehog. Here we go. Has there been any? I'm trying to think. Has there been anything from Chris Pratt, like in the previews, where he's sounded remotely Italian? I'm trying to, because I'm kind of at a loss as to where that might be. Because cause every iteration of the character from like whether it's the '90s movie or the cartoons, he's always had some sort of Italianness to him, I guess. And I can't think of anything. I mean, I guess he does say "Let's it go," doesn't he? Um, that's the only thing I can think of. It does make me laugh how John Leguizamo was criticizing the Mario movie because it didn't hire actual Italians to play the characters. Like, dude, you're not even Italian. You played Luigi and you're Puerto Rican. Okay, glitch here. See, I snuck it. You can slide with Hammer Mario, but only then. Only if you're sliding when you obtain it. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. Also, I don't like John Leguizamo. I find him to be kind of. I like him in that movie. Don't get, he's entertaining. Him and Bob Hoskins, they do have good chemistry. I will say that for the '90s movie, it's I think that they for the material that they have, they play well off of each other, and from the sounds of it, they enjoyed working together. I'm kind of surprised that maybe that they never, to my knowledge, they never did any other films together. But that production was such a nightmare, and they were miserable. From what I remember reading, that they would get drunk together. Bob Hoskins, I have to say, incredible actor. I think incredibly underrated as well. Um, People don't really give him enough credit, like his versatility as an actor. He's I think he was British. Like you listen to him in interviews, you would not know that that's the guy. Like you just listen to his voice, you would not know that that's the guy who played Mario or Eddie Valiant in um, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which coincidentally I saw last night on the big screen, which is pretty cool. If you get the chance, highly recommend doing that. Yeah, very talented. I think probably one of my probably might be my favorite. I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite, I guess, but one of my favorite roles he played in was he's a bad guy in what's the name of that movie? Unleashed with Jet Li. He's the bad guy in that, and he's great. Oh, he's so vile. Like it's the complete 180 from the movies that you saw him in as a kid. Hook, Mario Brothers, as I mentioned, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like, yeah, I'm hungry. Sorry if you can hear my tummy gurgling. I think once I beat this game, I think I'm off to have some dinner. Now, if I can beat this, um, with in keeping my Hammer Mario suit, I'm gonna get a different message from the king than what you normally get. It's a nice little secret. There's a I haven't come across any of these yet. Maybe just the you have to have the timing has to be right when you beat levels. But there's a ship you can go on that's all just coins. Um, I haven't gotten one of those. And then there's also a secret mushroom house that you get, and it gives you an anchor, which if you go to the castle, it actually keeps the flying ship at the castle. It's kind of useless. I don't even know it. Like it's an item it's there, and it's not it. You don't need it because it's not that much of a chore to go back and find the flying ship. Yes. Okay. Here we go. Hey you. How about lending me your clothes? No dice? What a drag. That king has such a weird face too. He looks like a dog with a mustache. All right, guys. World 7. After this, only one more world to go. The Dark Land. Oh, other cool thing about Hammer Mario? His weapon passes through walls. Super useful. Yeah. If you go above those, there's a hidden one-up mushroom, but I'm not gonna bother. I think I'll be okay. I'm not in any. I'm not worrying about getting getting a game over. I have 78 lives at this point, so I don't know why. I don't know what the reasoning was for the little music note uh, boxes, blocks, whatever you want to call them. I don't know why there's a musical note on there. I'm assuming it's a musical note. It looks like a musical note. That's what I always thought it was as a kid. I remember reading something interesting, seeing that mushroom. It made me think of this. That in the early days of these games, they referred to the mushroom as a magic mushroom, and then because that term is sort of associated with drugs, they decided to just change it to super mushroom or just mushroom. Oh, druggies. You guys have to ruin everything, don't you? I once had an idea for a Mario film, and it was what the idea was. It was intended as like a live action thing, and I had this idea of having like Tim Burton like direct it or whatever. And this was before um, he did Alice in Wonderland. And when I was writing, it wasn't actually a script. It was just like a little outline for a plot. Um, it, the idea itself took influence from like Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, which I mean, this takes influence from them anyway. But um, what else? Just fairy tales, and I had all these. It was cool. I had fun writing it. Um, I don't know what happened to that outline, but come on, it's one thing. The aiming on this is a little tricky. There we go. Time for another drink of water. Wait a minute. I need to go back. Sorry. Something I didn't understand: Super Mario All Stars, which is like I guess you would call it a remastering, reversioning of the the four NES games. So, um, they made some weird changes to some of the worlds. So, for example, okay, I always sort of assumed this was supposed to be like snow, ice, whatever. Um, on All Stars, it's just they color it brown. It's like underground or whatever. Which I mean, I guess it is, but I mean, it makes more sense that it's that than being ice. But I don't know. I remember as a kid playing that. I was thinking, this is supposed to be ice. Why isn't it ice? So I don't know. But I'm guessing that the remasters are probably closer to Miyamoto's vision. No, come on. There we go. Gotcha. This world as a kid, hated it. Piranha plants are the worst. They really, and that and Lucky too. Like those two combined, it's like, why? Don't do this to me. Okay. I only got one cloud. Okay. Well, I gotta go in order. So let's do this. I was in like, oh gosh, was it first, second grade? And I have this buddy, Russell, and we used to, play Super Mario Brothers like the playground and stuff like that. And we would go around the hallway and pretend we were going down pipes. I remember doing that in the hallway, and I remember our principal just like looking at us like, "What in the world are they doing?" Yeah, I am really looking forward to this movie. Like I plan on taking my niece to see it, and I I love seeing stuff with from my childhood being brought back in some way because in a way because it makes me feel like a kid again, and I have never, I mean, with some exceptions, most of the stuff that I love as a kid, I still have a great deal of appreciation for, and I go back to, and I like it on its own terms. I don't feel like there's any need to somehow make it for me as an adult. Case in point, I hate that what they did with Transformers, like those movies. It's like no, it was fine as a cartoon. I like the cartoon. In fact, I actually became a Transformers fan from watching the cartoon in my 20s. So that's another thing too. Like I'm hoping, and I don't anticipate that they are going to do this, but it's the world we live in wouldn't surprise me too much. Um, is if they somehow sneak in like adult stuff in the movie or things that shouldn't be in a kids film. So, for example, some sort of cursing or adult jokes or whatever. I mean, it's like no, just let let this be for kids and just enjoy it. Like it's fun. Like making putting those things in it doesn't suddenly make it more mature. It's like what they did with what's the movie? Pixar movie. The Incredibles 2. Like there was suddenly like swearing in it, and it's like, what? How did this make that like that wasn't in the first movie? Would that have made the first movie better? No, of course not. Come on. So it's all kind of silly. And I'm not. I've said before, I'm not prudish about that stuff, but I do think that there's a place for it, and that place is not children's entertainment or family entertainment. And if you need those things to enjoy something, then I feel sorry for you. It's like with Star Wars. Again, going back to Star Wars. There's been this big push to make Star Wars more adult, which is like, no, Star Wars was never meant for you. Like, you can appreciate it, you can enjoy it as a family member, you can enjoy it as a, whatever. But at the end of the day, George Lucas made it for young boys. Everybody's invited to like it. Everybody's, you're not nobody's saying you can't partake of it, but understand where it's coming from, who it's for. And that's my thought with Mario too, with the movie. Like, if girls want to see it for Princess Peach, that's great, but understand that Super Mario and Luigi are the heroes. It's their movie. So don't try to make it some sort of girl power fantasy, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. Call me sexist if you want. Because I don't care. At this point, it's a meaningless term anyway. Oops, see, dodged a fireball or blocked it. P-wing, holla holla yeah yeah. Sadly, I will have to bid my hammer suit adieu because I need flight. Something I think a lesson I kind of learned with this game as I got older was that you use the suit that is, I should say, use the power up, whatever you want to use it, whatever term you want to use. You use the power up that is appropriate to the level, not the one that is your favorite, because the favorite one might make things more difficult for you than you need it to be. Because I distinctly remember as a kid not wanting the fire flower, always wanting uh, Raccoon Mario. Even though the fire flower would make the level easier for me. I think I had to learn this lesson from GoldenEye, strangely enough. Totally different type of game, but I think the principle's the same. It's like using your favorite weapon as opposed to the weapon that's best for the level would make things needlessly difficult for you. Unless you had invincibility, all guns, and infinite ammo. I would love to do a play of that game. Um, I wouldn't even begin to know how to record that because this, of course, is being recorded off of a laptop, and I'm playing this on keyboard. I could not play GoldenEye on a keyboard, and I don't have a ROM or emulator for it anyway. I, I just have a hard copy of these games. Gosh, that game's great. I'm glad that it finally got a a release. I know some people aren't necessarily happy with the quality. I'm fine. I mean, I played it at a friend's house with on the Switch, and uh, it's a little bit of a learning curve because you're playing it on a different type of controller. But otherwise, I thought it was fine. I didn't have any problem. Oh, come on. Come on. There we go. Almost there. I didn't need to stop here. I'm sorry, it's a force of habit. I've been trying to skip over some of these things that I really don't need them. The timing on this one's always a little tricky. Oop, case in point. No! Ooh, wow. That was that was a close call. Very close call. All right, let's see what else can we take out of inventory. There we go. Okay. Cool. So this, okay, you'll notice to my right there's a pipe. I have no idea how to access that pipe. Like how to unblock that path. No idea what you do. I don't think a hammer does it. If it does, I've never had a hammer this far into the game to be able to use it, so I'm not sure. And I know I've used that pipe, like come out of that pipe through maybe one of the earlier ones in the world, but I'm not sure what the purpose is behind it. So a lot of times these pipes are they'll be blocked and you can't get to them unless you beat one of the castles earlier in the world. And I'm guessing it's maybe just more like just a shortcut when you're working through the map, so it save you time. Mm. Oh man. Well, I'm hoping. Yeah, like again, not that I need it, but I'm hoping that I can get 100 or 99 lives before the end. I usually well, that's the first time. I've never had that happen to me before. I was facing like directly underneath, and the boo was doing that weird little dance. I gotta say, I think that they toned down the boos for the later games because they're nowhere near as creepy looking as this one when you turn away from them. Like that's like nightmare fuel. Look at that. Look at that. It's evil, pure evil. Ooh, close call. Like, they seem considerably tamer in the later games. Like that, like their teeth. Like, they look like they're gonna like rip your throat out. Okay, come on. There we go. Where do boos come from? Oh, come on. Like, are they? They can't be dead Koopas because I think there are ghosts of Koopas, if I'm not mistaken, in the later games. I know they get the fish bones. Yeah. Hmm. Lakitu is a ghost in Super Mario World. He's got a little fishing pole. All right, what can I use here? I'm not gonna use. I'll use Starman. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe I shouldn't have used that because I need it. I'm gonna need one towards the end of the game. Come on. Ooh. I'll probably get another one. Mushroom. Pfft, useless. Let's see. What do I have in my inventory? Okay. Uh, let's free something up. Let's get that. Love that he turns into a piranha plant. That's great. Interesting little note for the Super Mario All Stars remaster of this. A lot of the enemies are turned into creatures from Super Mario Bros. 2 or from Super Mario World, which is kind of a cool little um, retcon, if you want to call it that. I like it. I like that it gives a little more continuity with the games. Not necessary, but just a fun little change, I guess. I wish they had given Fire Mario a little more variety of color. Like he's just like orange, and that's it. Like different shades of orange. Um, I think even if they had just made it like how he is in the first game, where it's red and white, I think it would have looked a little bit more appealing. But I don't know. It could have been an issue of memory. If they wanted to keep it simple, or palette limitations. We're almost there, folks. We're almost there. Almost to the end. I realized I don't have the sound on, so you can't hear it, but when I got older and learned a little bit more about music, it occurred to me on one of the playthroughs of this. It's like, oh, this is Holst the Planets. They're doing like a riff on that, and it's kind of that's kind of cool. Like, I mean, even like when this game was localized, there was a lot of like musical references, like the Koopalings, because they weren't originally named in Japan. They gave them names. The U.S. gave them names, and those were adopted by Japan. So this guy, for example, is Ludwig von Koopa. You have the other ones like Lemmy, like from the guy from Motorhead, Roy Orbison, Wendy Wendy O. Koopas, Wendy O. Williams from Plasmatics, um, Iggy Pop, Morton. I don't know who Morton's supposed to be from. I can't remember who else I'm missing. Do 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 do. Yo, I love that. That's so Japanese. King of the Koopa. All right, here we are, folks. The last world, World 8. Now it's getting crazy. We're in the fire hellscape that is the Dark World. Darkland, sorry. The Dark World is Zelda. Bob Bob-ombs are another carryover from Super Mario Bros. 2 because they did not appear in any previous Mario game. Yeah, there's quite a few things from Mario 2 that show up here. As I mentioned, sort of the stages of health that you get in here, in the U.S. version again, as I mentioned, being able to pick up enemies. I mean, you're not carrying them overhead; you're carrying them in front of you. But that's from Mario 2. The Bob-ombs, even Princess Peach's sprite is the same as Mario 2. I mean, there might be a slight difference on it, but it's basically the same. Come on, get out of here, you. This is a level that I watched um, with a tool assisted speed run. Guy just bouncing off the cannonballs, not even hitting the ground until he got to the pipe, and it blew my mind how cool it was. And just like just like one free guy after another because he kept hitting them over and over. Drink break. All right. And some of the enemies from some other enemies from Super Mario Bros. 2 popped up in other games. So like the Shy Guys are are like in the Yoshi games. Birdo has become a regular in some of the games. I love like I remember reading in um uh the manual for Super Mario Bros. 2 that Birdo was a boy who wants to be a girl or something like that. He'd rather be called Birdetta. And you don't really hear much talk about that now, and I don't know if it's canon, if you want to call it that. Um, because I haven't really heard any other references to that, but it's just kind of funny, especially today, because like everybody's all about the trans stuff. You would think that more attention would be called to that. Um, yeah, it's just a funny little detail about that character. I always remember that from mine. I had the manuals for the first two games. I didn't have one for the third, so I remember all these weird little details, like the fish, um, Cheep Cheep. They were specifically referred to as female, and I think the spinies when Lakitu was throwing them, they were referred to as spiny eggs, not actually like spiny curled up into a ball. Again, I don't know if spiny eggs if that's considered I hate using the word canon because that sounds so silly in the context of Mario because there really isn't a canon. But I don't know, like official. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. And these are literally like those are actual like enemies, not traps. They're called podoboos. And in the later games, they actually have faces, so they're ascribed some sort of um, personality or yeah, too many faces on everything in Mario. It's like the clouds have faces. It's like a very like uh, oh, almost I don't know, not pantheistic. That doesn't sound right. Maybe druid. I don't know. Here's another level I really, really hate, but we're gonna plow through it. Let's do it. Here we go. Sorry, had to focus. Take out boom boom. Don't quite understand why the fireballs are different colors depending on the room you're in. So, like in the boss rooms, they turn white, and in the mushroom houses, they turn green. It would be kind of cool if, like, maybe the later games adopted that to have some sort of function and not be purely cosmetic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Random ghost. Alright, come on. Almost there. Ah, darn you. No! Come on. Well, at least I got 2 free lives, so that's cool. And I'm gonna use my P-wing for this. This one's a little tricky. For those of you who are watching, hoping to see the full game, I apologize because this I'm probably not gonna show you too much of it from here. The angry sun. Now, my question is he really the sun? Or is he just something that looks like the sun? Because I kind of feel bad for the Mushroom Kingdom if the sun is actually just an angry sun. Also, it's incredibly dark out, so he's not doing his job very well. Okay, just a few more levels. Almost there. I don't know about you guys, but I'm hungry. If you can hear it right now, my tummy was just rumbling. Oh, something funny. This this is sort of a something that kind of used to irk me as a kid. It's like people would talk about Mario being chubby or fat, and my thought was always, no, Mario's not chubby. He's not fat. He's round. But really, like if you look at, I mean, yes, if you look at his stomach, he's drawn rounded. But go look up a picture of Luigi. His stomach is also rounded. Nobody ever says that Luigi's chubby. So, there. I rest my case. Plus, when you consider, like, particularly, like, now that we have Mario Odyssey, his proportions, he doesn't have the same proportions as a regular human. It's like when people said that Sonic was chubby. Sonic's not chubby. He's drawn rounded, but that's not the same. I don't know. I don't know why I feel very passionate about that. It sounds incredibly silly, but yeah. I don't know why I just hit save state. I did not need to do that. And this little conveyor belt makes me think of the boss battle with Metal Man in Mega Man 2. That's a game I should try playing on here. That would be fun. It would not be nearly as long as this, that's for sure. Okay, one more level and then we are at the end, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see, do I have any stars? Okay, cool. Alright, very good. Let's do this. Yeah. Omega Man's another character. It's like considered, well, at least in the his early artwork was considered chubby. Which again, you look at the game, he's not chubby. He's not. Yeah. I'd say he's cutesy, if you want to say that, but not chubby. Here we go. I should say, here we go. Sorry. All right. Sweet. All right, I'm getting a drink of water, preparing myself. This castle always looked weird to me. I know the All Stars version they changed the sprite for that completely. I'm not even sure. I can't remember what it looks like, but it doesn't look like that. All right, so here we go. Let's start with that. Hammer Mario, and then Starman. All right. You'll see why in a second. That. Just run straight through it. Okay. Take care of that guy. All right. I'm going to show you a little secret. Here that it can help you cut through. Oh no. Oh well. Right there, little secret. I think you can only get that if you're big. I'm not sure if it's a glitch. I think it's just a secret. But okay. Here we go, and here's a callback to the original. The fireballs coming your way. Come on. Like that. Here we are, the boss. The man himself. The turtle himself. Just use these. There we go. Made short work of them. So otherwise it's a little bit more stressful. And just so you know, that was not me jumping. That actually just happens when he hits the ground. Here we go. Oh, poor Princess Peach is crying. Thank you, but our princess is in another castle. Just kidding. Haha. Bye bye. Now, can you imagine if you had to play through this whole game all over again just to see the princess? It'd be like playing through Ghost and Goblins. Oh, what a nightmare. No, thank goodness. So let's just take a look at these last few worlds and then we will close it out for today. Grassland, Desert Land, Waterland. Again, that's a fun one. I like that one. Giant Land, as I mentioned, my favorite. That little sprite of Mario swimming, that is not actually in the game itself. Skyland, that one's okay. It's got some cool stuff. Not my favorite. Iceland, again, there's another sprite of a Goomba laying on its side. Not in the game. Pipeland, hated that as a kid. Really like it now. And Darkland World 8. So after you beat this game, you can start over again. This is unique to the US version, maybe the international too. You can start this game over again and you get a full inventory of P-Wings. But we're not going to do that because I've played this long enough. I am tired. I want to eat now. So thank you for watching this if you stuck through it to the end. And I'm looking forward to reviewing the Super Mario Brothers movie, and uh, I'll talk about it. And until then, thank you for watching. Take care, and God bless.